Welcome to class, everyone! Today in this explainer, we're diving into the amazing geography and the incredibly diverse people of Southeast Asia. We're going to tackle a really big question together. Why do people live exactly where they do? You know, the actual land beneath our feet totally changes how we live. It changes what we eat, how we build, and even the cultures we create.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll look at where people live, how farming connects to the land, explore some beautiful cultures, and then just wrap it all up with a quick summary.
All right, section 1. Where do people live? Let's start by looking at the physical land itself to, solve a bit of a mystery about where people actually choose to settle down.
Just look at these amazing farming terraces in the Philippines. Over 2,000 years ago, ancient farmers didn't have huge machines, right? They literally dug into these steep hillsides by hand. I mean, they moved mountains just to have flat spaces to plant their crops. Imagine doing all that hard work. It really shows us just how incredibly important it is to have good land for growing food.
And that brings us to a really important vocabulary word for today, factor. A factor is something that contributes to a result or a development. It's basically a reason or a cause for why something happens. Just like, say, studying is a major factor in getting a good grade. Well, in Southeast Asia, natural resources like rich soil and good water are a huge factor for why people choose to live in a certain spot. People naturally want to live where they can easily grow plenty of food.
Now check out how this population map proves that exact point. Notice the colors here. The dark red and purple areas show super crowded places with millions of people, and they're mostly right near the coasts or rivers. But meanwhile, those yellow areas, they're almost completely empty. So why is that? Let's look a little closer at the land itself.
Moving right along to section 2, farming and the land. Let's see how the physical earth actually changes how people farm and live.
To solve our mystery, we need our next keyword, terrain. Now, terrain simply means the physical features of the land. Is it flat? Is it bumpy? Is it a really high mountain or a super low, wet swamp? All of that is the terrain.
So terrain is usually either difficult or easy for human life. Difficult terrain means rugged mountains, really thick rainforests, and heavy, muddy swamps. Farming and traveling are super hard in these places, plus there are way too many mosquitoes. Because of that, very few people live there. On the flip side, easy terrain means flat coastal plains and river valleys. This kind of land naturally attracts massive populations because, well, farming is just so much easier.
A perfect example of this easy terrain is a delta. A delta is a flat area of land right at the mouth of a river. When a river flows all the way down from the mountains, it washes really rich, healthy soil along with it. And when it finally reaches the sea, it drops all that wonderful soil into one big, flat area.
Here's a great real-world example, the Mekong River Delta in southern Vietnam. Because the river drops so much fertile soil there, it creates this beautiful, flat land with excellent water. It's honestly an absolute paradise for farming. And because it's so great for growing food, it holds a massively high population.
But guess what? Deltas aren't the only places with great soil. Look at the biggest islands in Indonesia, like Java and Sumatra. They are covered in volcanic mountains. Now you might be thinking volcanoes are just dangerous, but actually, volcanic ash acts like nature's fertilizer. It creates super healthy soil. And what happens? Good soil attracts farmers. Extra food brings in trade, and eventually, people build huge cities right there. It literally all starts with the dirt.
All right, section 3, cultures of Southeast Asia. Now that we know where people live and why they live there, let's learn a little bit about who they are.
Southeast Asia is just wonderfully diverse. Many groups of people here are indigenous. Indigenous means native to or originating from a particular place. It basically means their ancestors have lived in Southeast Asia since ancient times, building really deep local traditions.
And here we have a brilliant visual example. This is an indigenous group called the Sudanese, which is an ethnic minority living on the island of Java. You can see them beautifully celebrating their traditional planting festival. It's just such a wonderful example of keeping ancient traditions alive today.
Now, this huge region has incredible variety. And that brings us to another great word, characteristic. A characteristic is a distinguishing, unique trait, kind of like your own characteristic handwriting. Myanmar, for example, has over 100 different ethnic groups. Places like Indonesia are a complete mosaic of groups, and each one has its own characteristic language and unique traditions.
You can clearly see this characteristic diversity when we look at religion across the region. Notice how countries right next door to each other have completely different majority religions. Ancient traders brought Hinduism and Buddhism early on. Later, trade routes brought Islam, which actually makes Indonesia the country with the largest Muslim population in the whole world. And then even later, European colonizers brought Christianity, making the Philippines mostly Christian.
Because of all this travel and trade, cultural blending is everywhere here. Take a look at the Minangkabau people of Indonesia. They originally lived up in the mountains, but they traveled far and wide to seek knowledge and wealth. Along the way, they absorbed Indian, Chinese, Western, and Dutch ideas right into their own indigenous culture. And because they were so open to learning from others, today they're actually among the most educated groups in the country.
Okay, Section 4, Summary of Main Points. We have learned so much today, class. Let's quickly review the big takeaways we discovered.
First up, natural resources are a major factor in where people choose to live. Second, easy terrain, like flat deltas and volcanic mountains, create really good farming soil. Third, Southeast Asia is home to many diverse indigenous groups. And finally, the whole region is a beautiful mosaic of characteristic languages and blended religions.
So, right before we finish up this explainer, I want you to think about this question. If the difficult terrain, the rivers, and the mountains change how people live in Southeast Asia, well, look right outside your own window. How do the physical features of your own town affect the way you live your life today? It's pretty fascinating to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey today, and keep asking those great questions.